So growth in the European Scout region. I hope you now have a general overview what happened on world level. And as Jo said, you all committed to it. Your NSOs, your National Scout Organization, or National Scout Associations, they have all been there. In Ljubljana at the World Scout Conference, in Baku at the World Scout Conference, you committed to it voluntarily. And the strategy of scouting that we agreed on in Baku was agreed on by 98-point-something%. So we still haven't identified the person who voted against it. We're still working on that. But you all are committed. And the same in the European Scout region, because what we're doing in the European Scout region is we're aligning ourselves with the Vision 2023 and the strategy of scouting. So in our regional scout plan, it says that Vision 2023 is our vision. Our vision, we don't need an own vision in the region, as we have the same mission, the same methods, we also have the same vision. And we're saying that growth through quality, we will actively contribute to the development of world campaigns and initiatives to propose a growth of 5% year on year in every NSO in Europe. 5%. That's what you committed to. That is what by 2019, in the next European Scout Conference in Split, we're going to check on. So 5% is quite a lot. I know if you're from the UK, from the Netherlands, or from Liechtenstein, I know you had reservations there. We don't measure you at the 5% for different reasons, because both the Netherlands and the UK had a very, very strong growth in the last years. So their 5% stretches a bit. And Liechtenstein actually, because there's quite a small population and they already have an incredible market share. So if they're adding another 5%, they're shortly running out of young people. So there are different reasons, but everybody else committed to 5%. In our regional scout plan, we have also the goal to supporting growth and supporting NSOs and NSAs to actively pursue quality growth to result in 2.1 million members through the development and implementation of growth strategies. 2.1 million members by 2019. That's a challenge for us, but it also shows, and now I put the pressure down a bit, 2.9 million, we not in this region single-handedly deliver the 100 million. I'm sorry to tell you that, but with a population in Europe of roughly under 300 million, we're not going to deliver the 100 million growth for the World Organization. That has other reasons as well, because we're doing scouting differently in Europe. We have a volunteer-based scout system. If countries like Germany, the UK, or France would introduce school scouting, we single-handedly could probably deliver or come very close to delivering the figures we need. But we have a different system. We have volunteer-led scouting, and that has different needs and different challenges. But 2.1 million is a stretch for us. It's a first step. And I would be, when we are at 2023, saying we delivered in Europe 3% of the 100 million. I think that is something we can be very proud of in this region. There was a presentation, I stole a bit from the presentation that we saw in Baku at the World Scout Conference. So that is where we are at the moment in Europe. We have a current market share of 1.24%. I don't have to exclude like the world level China or something like that, because we're actually quite good in the coverage in Europe. We just have 2 countries where we currently don't have a recognized scout organization, which is Andorra and which is Albania. So from their population, there's not a very big influence, but we're on track there to fill our white spots in Europe there as well. Our annual growth rate is 4.53%, which is actually quite good if you compare it with the figures from world level, which we are currently on 2 point something. We're already over-delivering on that, which also has to do with that growth was already a priority and that we are in certain processes already ahead. We had a lot of renewal of youth programs. We had communication strategies that has been developed and so on. So a lot of NSOs, even if growth was not always the main focus, already delivered elements which led to growth. We also, from the breakdown of gender, we have 28.6% female, which is slightly under the international average, which is also something that we're seeing because the World Association of Girl Guiding and Girl Scouting, our dear sister organization in Europe, they have also a significant number of members here, and we still have organizations which are members of WOSM but just register the boys in WOSM and the girls in WEX, which of course is changing the ratio of our gender balance. So these are the as we said before, the presentation will be provided so you can go into the small print, and if you are really a number junkie, you can download the full presentation from Baku, which has much more details on all the different regions there as well. But there are, skip that, but we had the awards, the top NSOs for absolute growth. We had 3 associations from our region which made it in the top 10, which were Turkey, United Kingdom, and Israel. And if you're coming from a smaller country, you can see Israel is not the highest population country in the world. You have a chance to come into the top 10 if you're not having 20, 30 or 40 million inhabitants. If you look into our region, the center block down, Turkey, United Kingdom, Israel, Czech Republic, and Spain. These were the absolute numbers. But what we're trying in Europe to actually ignore the absolute numbers, because absolute numbers are quite unfair if you're coming from a continent where there are so many small countries. And again, I'm just looking at my dear friend from Germany, 80 million. They, of course, when it comes to absolute numbers, have much more people to work with than looking at my friend from Liechtenstein, just a couple of extremes there. So what we're looking for is more the market share element. And there we can see on top, and even number 2 in the world, market share of 8.55% is Liechtenstein. So a small round of applause maybe. And as you can also see, we have also Monaco and Iceland and Luxembourg in that. But that doesn't mean you need to be a small country to have a great market share, because that is actually the point where you can we're all on a similar level playing field, and we can all work on these numbers to reach out more, to reach more of your young population. So a goal without a plan is just a wish. I always like that quote. So national growth plans. Maybe hands up who is aware that you have a national growth plan in your association. And from the people who just raised their hand, how confident are you currently in the successful implementation, and that if I would ask different members in your association, that you all know about the National Growth Plan and how to implement it? Okay, so that is one of the elements where we as a region also trying to come in and help. That is where we have consultants that we can send to you to support you. There's no template, unfortunately. I don't have a suitcase here of national growth plans that I'm just handing out. You just fill in your country and your contact address and it's done. Because each of our countries is different. Some methods work in one country, some methods work in other countries. There are cultural differences, there are political differences, there are a lot of external factors. There's a funding element which is very important for some of the elements. So what we can just offer is you to work with you. You know your countries, you know your Scout Association, you know how much you can deliver at what time. Because that's also somewhere later in my slide. Sustainable growth is another element that we need to look at. We can create straw fires. We're pushing a lot of money in an advertising campaign. Every single bus in Austria is going to have joined the Scouts on it. There will be 1.2 million Scouts joining. And the question is that organization ready to embrace that amount of new people? And can we hold on to them for a long time? So we need to think nothing. We need to think how we achieve that. And that is why we have here in our service model, our strengthening our organization. And Matthias is the coordinator for that area, where we actually have the tools and the resources and the volunteers to support you. And we do that through two elements. Global Support Assessment Tool. This is the so-called GSAT that we already heard several times, and the Tailored Support and Growth. The Global Support Assessment Tool is something that in our region already 19 NSOs have, or NSAs have done the GSAT. Maybe quickly hands up, who knows that their National Scout organization or a National Scout association has done the GSAT?
Yes,
so,
also.
So, thank you very much. Ideally, everybody should be aware. So, because again, GSAT is not telling you what you need to do, but is pointing at elements where you need to look at. Or it also points out things that you're actually very good at, because it's not just finding the problems, but also emphasizing you are very good, for example, in communication. That is what you're doing, and how you're doing is brilliant. You can do it more, but how you do it at the moment is working. That is also very confident sometimes for an organization if you just get feedback, because if you don't have the direct peer comparison, you never really know where you are, is what you're doing the right thing. There are different levels of the Global Support Assessment Tool. We have the Platinum Edition, which is an external assessment where we have a professional organization coming in, doing the GSAT with you. We have the gold level, the gold standard, which is where trained volunteers from the World Organization of the Scout Movement working with your organization in going through the tool. And we have the first level, which everybody easily can do, which is a self-assessment. There has been a self-assessment training last year. There will be one in due course again. That is something, again, just send somebody there, learn how it's done, and Matthias will say something.
End of September, last weekend of September, we will do a self-assessment training again this year in Vienna. That's confirmed.
And one thing is also, GSAT is not a tool to blame and shame. The data that we're getting from the GSAT is always just presented in statistical or anonymous way. So it is not that we're saying, oh, and these are the results from the Netherlands, and that's where they failed. And so it is, the information will be shared with the NSO, and the leadership of the NSO or NSA can decide what they're doing with that data. They can, which we don't hope for, but put it in a box and sit on it and say, we're not looking at that again. But hopefully, if we're all doing some self-reflection and would like to improve, we're getting that out and work with the different bodies in our organization how to deal with the identified challenges. Tailored support is the other element we're offering, which is quite simple. You have a problem, you tell us about the problem, we help you to solve the problem. So if you have a very specific question, either how do I develop a growth strategy, or it can be even more specific in saying, I have a problem with growing in the north part of my country where there's a very rural setting. So how can I grow in rural settings where there's no scouting present? That is a very concrete question. Come to us, and we will find somebody who's working with you on, maybe from a different organization who had a similar challenge and who successfully dealt with it, or who is on a good way to deal with it. It doesn't need to be growth related. That is with everything. We need a new communication strategy, or our website needs a refit, or how do I deal with primary school, school scouting, after school scout clubs or something like that. Every a different question where you would like to have some external input or external help, that is something we can help you with. Also talk to Matthias, talk to Goran, they know more about this. This is the growth element in our regional scout plan, but with the look in the time, it just 4 elements that I just wanted to stress while I'm having the opportunity to talk to you. Retaining growth is also a very important element. I spoke to a couple of people yesterday, and one of the elements is that normally when you're delivering your figures, you tell us your figures this year. We compare them with the figures last year. So if you last year said we had 50,000 scouts and this year we have 70,000, we would say, ooh, 20,000 plus. But if that means that you actually lost 40,000 and you gained 60,000, that is still a plus of about 20,000, but actually you lost 40,000 of your scouts. So retaining the growth and retaining the people. Normally it is easier to keep somebody in your organization that already encountered what scouting is and address maybe the elements that they didn't like. Maybe it was too loud in their Cub Scout group, or they find that you are too academic in your approach and there's less adventure in your. These are things that you can address to actually make it more attractive for your members to stay, both for the young members and for the adults. And what we identified also in our region is that retaining the members through their whole membership journey is another challenge, so that we have, for the girls, for example, when they turn 13, 14, that is an age where they're going in some association from junior scouts to scouts, where we're losing them. Or where in the 16 plus section, that is another gap where we're seeing that members stopping their membership journey and not finishing and becoming adult volunteers and so on. So that is something where you can look into how to adapt your youth program. Are the age sections that you currently have still the right one? Do we need different age sections for boys and girls, because we know they're developing differently? So these are different questions that you can ask yourself. That is also something where you can exchange and see how are you addressing that and sharing best practice. What I said about the sustainable growth, we need to make sure that also where we will put resources in, there's money available on world level, there's Messenger of Peace money available that can be put. But again, if we're putting a couple of millions into a marketing campaign, that needs to be sustainable, and the organization needs to be ready. And some organizations who went to a credible growth percentage-wise, coming to a point where actually the structure that they're having in their organization is not able to cope with more local ground units. So you need to take a moment there and see, okay, how do I develop my organization so that we can take the next step of growth one element up. Growth through quality, that is another thing. Always when we're talking about growth, the Europeans are saying, but it needs to be growth through quality. What does it mean, growth through quality? One of the elements is we want to keep our identity when it comes to volunteer-led scouting. And what we don't want is to just give up what we have. We believe in the scout method, we believe in what we have, and that it's a unique thing that we're offering. And if you have a unique product, you don't want to change the product too much to make it attractive to everybody. So the question is, do we want to have 100% of all the young people in our country if we have to water down scouting to a level that everybody's happy to do it? That's another thing. So how can we keep our quality standards and attracting it to more people? Sometimes it's not the easiest way to do, because it takes longer to explain and you can't easily pitch it just that you're saying, oh, it's free rafting or something like that, but saying, yeah, there's a concept behind. And then, yeah, market share versus absolute figures. That is also for, don't just look at the numbers and when you break down figures maybe in your country into different regions and so on. In some regions, a growth of 500 scouts is a great thing, and it can be a market share of 20% in a certain region. So just have the headline figures turn you down or up. There's one quote that I also like from Baden-Powell. It's a movement because it moves forward, and as it stops moving, it becomes an organization and it's no longer scouting, which is a bit ironic, speaking from the perspective of the word organization of the scout movement. But keep in mind, it's a movement, and it is also, there's scouting happening in different levels, and people doing scouting maybe in your country without realizing it, or realizing it and without being in the formal structure or something. See what you can do there, see how you can embrace them, because they have a similar mindset and are much easier to approach. Any questions? Okay, then shall we start already with a short break, because some people look like they could use a bit of getting up and talking. There was a lot of front lecturing, so sorry for that. And there's normally methods that we can use, but probably, as you know from your own association, when you're dealing with adult volunteers or when you do paper scouting, sometimes you forget about the different methods that we're offering in our organization. But yeah, get up, move a bit around, and then we're meeting back here.
I wanted to make at some point, so, and it's the perfect time because Lars was talking about tailored support and global support assessment tool. So this is really something that is available to you, so use it. You are also paying some parts of, a little part of your membership fee to WASM, and we also use parts of that money to support you, so it comes back to you. We are a service organization in the European region also for you. So please, if you have something where you're struggling, ask us and we can support you with a consultant. But also we, from the GSAT, we know where some of you are strong and where some others are maybe not so strong. So we can also link the strong ones with the weaker ones. For example, in growth strategy or in strategic management or in integrity management or risk management or financial management, whatever you can think about. So use that. And also apply for the GSAT, because that, as I said, helps us to identify good practices. And from some experience now in tailored support, most of the questions we get is, where are the best practices? If you don't share them with us, we don't know. So we really need you to allow us to have some view inside your organization so we can really identify the best practices in Europe at least. And also we can motivate you and support you in sharing these best practices. So I'm therefore also very much looking forward to the bazaar tomorrow evening. And if you have any questions, as Lars said, we are here to answer these questions. Juliana, Goran, myself, we are all in this, and now Lars as well. We all know how it works. So please, if you have any questions, if you need support, ask us and approach us, and don't be scared. We are all kind of, sometimes at least, nice people. Thank you, and sometimes, yeah. The advantage with me is most of the times I have chocolate with me, so that sometimes helps.